Hellscube Gameplay Rules Advanced. Hell's Rules Current Revision 2026.5.4. Last updated 2026-06-07. Last changes. Updated H2.4.3a to allow split permanents with fuse or similar abilities to enter merged when reanimated. Rule H.Nan, the Hellscube Golden Rule. It works. H.Nan.1. It works supersedes all other rules. H.Nan.1a. Should it say it works, it works. H.Nan.1b. Should it not say it works regardless. H.Nan.1c. Should its reminder text, flavor text, art box, or other supplied information outside the rules text imply it works, how it works, or what it does, that information supersedes all pertinent rules that would imply otherwise. H.Nan.1d. Should a Hell's Judge rule a particular way in which it works, that ruling further supersedes. Check rulings, check the rulings column in the database, or ask a judge for a ruling if none can be found. H.Nan.1e. Should the particularities of the way things work be in indeterminate conflict, such conflict may be resolved amongst yourselves at the table, or by a judge, on a case-by-case basis. Unlike in Magic, where a rule, ruling, or precedent almost always exists, often in Hells, no such rule, ruling, or precedent exists. This is a feature, not a bug, and having the resulting debate is a natural part of the gameplay. H.Nan.1f. Cards should be played as written by default. Hellscube largely does not use oracle text without an accompanying visual errata. Use your best judgment. H.0.1. Rules that only affect Hells 1, and cards created for Hells 1. H.0.1.1. Ante. Override CR 407. H.0.1.1.1. In normal Magic, using anti-rules is considered an optional variation of the game. This is not the case when playing Hells 1. All Hells 1 games use anti-rules, modified according to these official rules. H.0.1.1.1a. In normal Magic, when using the optional anti-rules, each player puts a random card from their deck into ante after determining who goes first, but before either player draws a starting hand. This is not the case when playing Hells 1. Players only ante cards when an effect instructs them to do so. H.0.1.1.2. To ante a game object is to move that object to the ante zone from whatever zone it's currently in. H.0.1.1.3. Ante is a shared public zone. All cards in ante can be examined by either player at any time. H.0.1.1.4. At the end of the game, all cards in ante are added to the winner's draft pool and removed from the draft pools of all other players. If the game is a draw, all cards in ante remain in the draft pool they were most recently in before moving to ante. H.0.1.1.5. If a card is removed from ante before the game ends, it is returned to the draft pool it was in before moving to ante. H.0.1.2. Companion. Overrides CR 702.139. H.0.1.2.1. Cards in Hellscube 1 with Companion use the pre-errata version of Companion. Once per game, you may cast your chosen Companion from your sideboard. For any card not in Hells 1, the Companion rules used should be specified in the rules text of the card. H.0.6. Rules that only affect Hells 6 and cards created for Hells 6. H.0.6.1. Hellsmander Draft. H.0.6.1.1. Hellsmander Draft is a Hellscube variant of Commander Draft. Hellscube 6.0 is drafted as a 4-person Hellsmander pod, and Hellscube 6.1 is drafted as an 8-person pod. H1.17. Packs consist of 20 cards, with 2 commanders randomly seeded into each pack. Players draft 2 cards at a time from each pack. H1.6.2, 2 free prismatic partners. H1.6.2.1, after a Hell 6 draft is complete, each player may add up to 2 copies of prismatic partner to their card pool, but only if those cards are used as the player's commanders. H1.6.3, Hellsmander Draft Deck Construction. H1.6.3.1, Hellsmander Draft Deck Construction follows the same rules as Commander Deck Construction, with 4 exceptions. H1.6.3.1a, a player's deck must contain exactly 60 cards, including commanders. H1.6.3.1b, a player's deck may include any number of cards from that player's card pool with the same name. The singleton rule does not apply. H1.6.3.1c, any card which can be a player's commander by itself, and whose color identity includes 1 or fewer colors, is considered to have the partner ability for the purposes of deck building. Per normal rules, if a commander has more than 1 partner ability variant, you must choose just one to use. You can't use both. H1.6.1.2d, Based Hybrid Rule. When building your deck for Hellsmander Draft, you may choose which components of hybrid mana symbols contribute to a non-commander card's color identity. H1.6.3.1d.1, Phyrexian mana symbols can be counted as colorless. Example, a card that costs hybrid 2 black, hybrid colorless red, Phyrexian blue, and green-white hybrid can go in a mono-green deck. H1, Mechanics. H1.1 Reserved. H1.1.1 Reserved. H1.2 Conjure. H1.2.1 To conjure a card, use the Oracle or Hellfile card references to find the official text for the card you're conjuring. Then, put the appropriate conjured card into the appropriate zone. H1.2.1a, a conjured card's owner is the player who is instructed to conjure it. H1.2.1b, the conjured card does not need to obey format legality or deck building instructions. H1.2.2, unless stated otherwise, conjured cards are not tokens. Treat conjured cards just as you would treat regular cards. They can move between zones just like any other card, and continue to exist for the duration of the game. At the end of the game, make sure to remove all conjured cards from your deck. H1.2.3, a conjured copy of a card has only values printed on the original card. H1.3, freezing and tapping spells or abilities, considered antiquated as of Hells 2. H1.3.1, while the stack is frozen, spells and abilities don't resolve. They resolve as normal after the stack becomes unfrozen. H1.3.2, while a spell or ability is frozen on the stack, that spell or ability won't resolve. It will resolve as normal if it becomes unfrozen. H1.3.2a, mana abilities don't use the stack, so they can't be frozen. H1.3.3, while all spells and or abilities on the stack are frozen, after both players pass priority without putting a spell or ability on the stack, play passes to the next step or phase as though the stack were empty. H1.3.4, players may cast spells as though frozen spells or abilities on the stack didn't exist. For example, Players may cast sorcery spells during their main phases, even if there are spells or abilities frozen on the stack, as long as there are no unfrozen spells or abilities on the stack. H1.3.4a. A frozen spell with split second will not prevent players from casting spells or activating abilities, since the casting rules of those spells and abilities act as though frozen spells and abilities don't exist. H1.3.5. While a spell or ability is frozen on the stack, spells and abilities that aren't frozen resolve as normal, even if they are below a frozen spell or ability. H1.3.6. If an effect instructs a player to resolve a spell or ability that is frozen on the stack, that spell or ability resolves. H1.3.7. If an effect counters a spell or ability that is frozen on the stack, it is removed from the stack as normal and put in the appropriate zone, or ceases to exist if it's an ability. H1.3.8. Some spells and abilities tap a spell. A tapped spell is frozen, and untaps during its controller's untap step. It will typically resolve in the upkeep after it untaps. H1.4. Purple and additional colors. H1.4.1. Hellscube has 6 basic colors. They are white, blue, black, red, green, and purple. H1.4.1a. In versions of Hellscube lacking purple, for example, Hells 2, Hells 4, Hells 6, Hells 8, etc., purple is not considered a basic color. H1.4.2. Some cards reference additional nonsense colors, such as yellow, pink, brown, and orange. These colors do not exist until a card references them. H1.4.2a. Once a nonsense color is referenced by a card, it continues to exist for the rest of the game. H1.4.2b. A nonsense color becomes referenced when a face-up card containing said color enters a public zone or becomes revealed by a spell or ability. Revealing a card from your hand outside the resolution of a spell or ability doesn't count. As a reminder, the first step of casting a spell is to move the card from your hand to the stack, and the stack is a public zone. This allows you to use rainbow lands to tap to cast nonsense color costs, even if the color wasn't previously referenced. H1.4.2c. During deck building, nonsense colors on objects in your card pool are considered to exist. H1.5. Additional basic lands. H1.5.1. Nebula is a basic land type that has tap, add purple. H1.5.2. A nebula is a basic land with the nebula subtype. H1.5.3. Nebulas cannot be freely added to your deck at deck creation time. The only basic lands that can be freely added to your deck are plains, islands, swamps, mountains, and forests. H1.6. Zones. H1.6.1. In normal Magic, the sideboard is considered to be outside of the game. While several cards reference objects from outside the game, such as Wish, it is not a zone of play. In Hellscube, the sideboard is considered a zone. H1.6.1a. The sideboard is an unshared, unordered private zone. Each player has a separate sideboard. H1.6.1b. An effect or ability that moves an object outside of the game puts it into its owner's sideboard unless another destination is indicated. H1.6.2. Some cards reference nonsense zones, such as Uwu decks, Eye Collector decks, and the Auto Zone. These zones do not exist until a card references them. H1.6.2a. The properties for these zones are implied by the cards that reference them. For example, the Eye Collector deck can be reasonably assumed to be an unshared, ordered, hidden zone, properties typical of deck. H1.6.2b. Once a nonsense zone is created by a card, it continues to exist for the rest of the game. As a reminder, the typical zones of play are the battlefield, stack, exile, libraries, hands, graveyards, command zones, and sideboards. H1.7 Numbers, considered antiquated as of Hells 3. H1.7.1 Some cards care about or modify numbers on other cards. This can be considered similar to a text-changing effect, or the acorn card more or less. H1.7.2 Numbers and number words are different. Numbers are digits 1, 3, 5. Number words are words 1, 3, 5. The quantitative A is neither. H1.7.2a Numbers and number words are both numerical values, for the sake of effects that care about numerical values on permanents you control. H1.8 Token cards and hand tokens. H1.8.1 Some effects instruct you to create a token in a zone other than the battlefield, or to create a hand token. All of these tokens are considered token cards and are handled slightly differently from normal tokens. H1.8.1a Some cards are printed with the word token in their type line, as though it were a supertype. These cards are also treated as token cards. H1.8.1b Some effects may cause an object represented by a card to become a token. That object becomes a token card for as long as it remains in that zone. H1.8.1c Some effects may create a predefined token in a zone other than the battlefield. For example, a blood token on the stack, or a weed token in your hand. These effects create token cards. H1.8.2 A token card may move from one zone to another as if it were a non-token card, and does not cease to exist as a result of it being in a zone other than the battlefield. H1.8.3 If a token card is created in a private zone, that token card is owned by that zone's owner, rather than the owner of the effect that created the token card. H1.8.4 While not on the battlefield, rules and effects treat token cards as though they were cards. H1.8.5 Effects that care about tokens, or creating tokens, do not care about token cards in non-battlefield zones. H1.8.6 Unrevealed token cards are indistinguishable from other unrevealed cards in that zone. H1.9 Tokens of extant cards. H1.9.1 Some effects instruct you to create a token based on an existing card in Magic or Hellscube, such as a Colossal Dreadmaw token, or a Clockwolf token. These effects create a token with all the characteristics of the named card. Use Oracle for Magic cards, or Hellsfall for Hellscube cards. H1.9.1a If an effect instructs a player to create a named token, and name is one of the names of a card in the Oracle or Hellsfall card references with multiple or alternate names, that token does not have any of the characteristics of any of that card's other halves, names, or faces. Example: a resolving spell says, add a stomp token to your hand. The resulting token card is an adventure instant token card named Stomp with mana cost 1 red, and the text, damage can't be prevented this turn. Stomp deals 2 damage to any target. It does not have any characteristics of Bone Crusher Giant. H1.9.1b If an effect instructs a player to create a name/name token, or token card, and both instances of name correspond with a card in the Oracle or Hellfall card references with multiple or alternate names, then that token has the characteristics of each named part, is double-faced if that card is double-faced, can be played as any part that the original card could be played as, and can take on the characteristics of any of the named alternate parts. Example, a resolving spell says, add a Branchloft Pathway / Boulderloft Pathway token to your hand. The resulting token card is a modal double-faced token card that can be played as Branchloft Pathway or Boulderloft Pathway. H1.9.2. If a token of an extant card is created in a non-battlefield zone, that token is a token card in addition to its other characteristics. H1.9.3. If an effect instructs a player to draw a name, that player conjures the appropriate card outside the game and puts it into their hand. This is considered drawing a card. The conjured card is not put into your library. If you replace the effect with another draw effect, you draw from your library as usual, instead of drawing the name. H1.10. Your Dreadmaw. H1.10.1. Your Dreadmaw is a designation that can be applied to an object or card. Each player begins the game with a conjured copy of the card Colossal Dreadmaw outside the game, designated as Your Dreadmaw. No other objects have the designation Your Dreadmaw unless otherwise specified. H1.10.2. Effects that apply a continuous effect to Your Dreadmaw, wherever it is, apply to all cards with the designation. Example, Dreadmaw Cultist is a creature that reads, at the beginning of your end step, give your Colossal Dreadmaw +1/+1, wherever it is. This creates an indefinite, continuous effect that grants objects with the designation of Your Dreadmaw +1/+1. H1.10.3. The Your Dreadmaw designation is a copyable characteristic. Each player's designation is distinct and tracked separately. Example, the Large Hadron Colossal Dreadmaw is an artifact that has the ability Your Colossal Dreadmaw has haste, wherever it is. A player controls both a Colossal Dreadmaw with the Your Dreadmaw designation and the Large Hadron Colossal Dreadmaw. Their opponent casts Clone, choosing for it to enter as a copy of the Colossal Dreadmaw. The cloned Colossal Dreadmaw has haste. H1.10.3.a. If an effect refers to Your Dreadmaw, while you have multiple cards with the characteristic, it refers to any of them. If an effect causes you to perform an action on Your Dreadmaw, and it could affect multiple cards, you choose which it refers to at the time the effect is applied. H1.11.1. Phase Permanence. H1.11.1. Phase is a permanent card type. When a phase ends, or when a phase that is skipped would end, if the active player controls one or more phases with the corresponding phase type that haven't been taken this turn, that player takes one of those phases of their choice. H1.11.1a. If an effect has added one or more additional phases of the same type as the current phase, or additional steps of that phase after the current phase, those phases are taken before any phase permanence. Example, a player controls 2 combat phase permanents. During their first combat phase of the turn, they cast a spell which reads, after this phase, there is an additional combat phase, followed by an additional main phase. After the current combat phase, that player will take the combat phase, add it by the spell, then their phase permanents in either order, then the main phase, add it by the spell. H1.11.2. Some effects create turn permanents. Anytime a player controls a turn permanent, the turn permanent ceases to exist, and that player takes an extra turn after the current turn. This is a state-based action. H1.12 Hell. H1.12.1 Hell is a public, shared, unordered zone. To send an object to hell is to put it into hell from whatever zone it's currently in. Hell functions like exile. H1.12.2 Some effects instruct a player to go to hell. If a player is in hell, at the beginning of their upkeep, they take 3 damage. This damage has no source. Players in hell are otherwise treated the same as players outside of hell. H1.12.2a Some effects that send a player to hell also allow them to pay a cost to leave. Unless stated otherwise, doing so is a special action. A player can take such an action any time they have priority. Example: Go skydiving with a Christian baby says, destroy target creature. You go to hell until you pay 4 in reparations. Anytime you have priority, you may pay 4 to leave hell. Doing so does not use the stack and cannot be responded to. H1.13 GX Abilities. H1.13.1 A GX ability is a special kind of activated ability. Cost Effect GX means cost effect. Activate only if you haven't acted your maximum number of GX abilities this game. H1.13.1a A player can normally activate 1 GX ability each game. However, continuous effects may increase this number. H1.14 Animation. H1.14.1 A creature is considered animated if a type-changing continuous effect is applying to it that is causing its card types to change from not including creature to including creature, or if a type-changing continuous effect is applying to it that would cause it to stop being a creature under certain conditions that are not being met, other than if it was or wasn't cast using a particular alternate cost. H1.15 Minigames. H1.15.1 A minigame is an effect that results in one or more players winning. H1.15.1a A player plays a minigame when they win or lose a minigame. H1.15.1b A player wins a minigame if they meet the minigame's specified win condition. If the minigame does not specify a win condition, they win if a choice they made as a part of the minigame results in the least negative effect of the possible outcomes. H1.15.1c A player loses a minigame if they do not win the minigame. Examples of minigames include, but are not limited to, flipping a coin, rolling a die, rock, paper, scissors, clashing, voting, goblin game, subgames, tic-tac-toe, bingo, 3-card Monty, or predict-esque effects. Anything that involves chance, luck, or an effect that pauses the main game in order to resolve, and has players make a choice while the main game is paused, is a minigame. H1.15.2 Some effects instruct a player to win a minigame. That player is considered to have played and won a minigame. No other players are considered to have played said minigame. H1.15.3 Minigame is a supertype. An effect that refers to a minigame spell refers to both spells with the minigame supertype and spells whose effect include a minigame or instruct a player to win a minigame. Example: Late Night Solo Queuer says minigame spells you cast cost 1 less to cast. This discounts both What's in Grenzo's Bottom, Backwards Long Jump, and Achievement Bonus. It does not discount spells that create triggered abilities that are minigames, such as Addicted Gambler. H1.16 Grunch. H1.16.1 Grunch is a keyword action. To grunch, !grunch, or go to How to Grunch. This happens as the effect instructing you to grunge resolves. H1.16.1a. If the rolled grunge action sets a value for question mark becomes defined. Otherwise, it becomes undefined. Then, put the rolled to grunge ability on the stack. This works like a reflexive triggered ability. H1.16.2. The value of question mark is shared for all players. It begins the game undefined. H1.16.3. While question mark is undefined, a creature with question mark toughness cannot die due to having toughness 0 or less. Its toughness is still treated as 0. This is an exception to rule CR 704.5F. H1.17. Player objects. H1.17.1. Some effects cause a player to become an object, such as a creature. H1.17.1a. If the object a player became would die, that player loses the game. H1.17.1b. Unless otherwise specified, a player controls the object that they are. H1.17.1c. The controller of an object a player became also controls that player. H1.18. I guess I'll stop for now.